Okay, welcome everybody to A Little Perspective. Today we have a very special guest for you guys, David. How's it going today, David?
It's going good, man. It's great to be here. It's great to be with you guys. Thanks for inviting me. Like I said, it's my first podcast experience, so
Well, thank you for accepting it.
Yeah.
The first podcast that we shot with somebody, like it was our first time shooting
Yeah.
a podcast. It was a lot of silence. Like we were so nervous, we couldn't come up with questions. It was so nervous.
Right.
Yeah, can imagine.
And
You guys
30
have gotten a lot better at it, though. I saw a couple episodes before
Yeah.
I came on today, and I was like, okay, yeah, cool.
That's dope.
Yeah, man.
Well, our
Good
first
to see you
episode was
guys.
like also like $30 USB mics. We would have like a laptop in the middle. We'd be like changing stuff while we were talking. So trust me, like it's always like a good experience to start, no?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Totally.
But you were also talking about in our first meeting that you wanted to start a podcast too.
So this was something I did consider for a while last year. Like I was going to... So I still used to work at Precision AI. And in the Path building, they have this creators room or creation room, and they have like a podcast thing all set up there. So I was like, oh, it'd be nice to have a podcast and all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, I did film like the first episode. But yeah, I don't know. Some things just happen more naturally than some other things. So I felt like that was one of those things that there was a bit more just
Forced.
I don't know, not forced. Like there was a bit more resistance, like on the outside, like in the scope of things that I wanted to do or that I was doing at that time. That had the most resistance for whatever reason, even though I wanted to do it. So it just became something that like, okay, well maybe later on, But yeah, other things came up really fast and just like, okay, yeah, just put that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, well, David, before we dive deeper into our conversations, how about you introduce yourself to our guests, our listeners, our viewers? Just a brief intro.
Okay. My name is David Akinmade. Many people, got to Canada, like I had issues with my last name, right? Because people would say Akinmade, and I'm like, nah, it's not 3 syllables, it's 4. It's like Akinmade. But yeah, my background is in data, so I think I've covered almost every career path in the data stack. So I was a data analyst in the Nigerian army. I was a data analyst for a startup in Nigeria. I got here, I was a data scientist at Saxtel. I was a machine learning engineer with the Ministry of Policing, Public Corrections. I was a machine learning researcher at U of R, the Laboratory for Computational Discovery. Then I worked as an AI engineer for Precision AI. And last year, I founded and registered my startup, Laroye AI. And that's what I'm doing now. Founder, Laroye AI, just trying to build AI stuff that makes the world a better place, Yeah.
I guess we have a new IBM company coming up.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it from Nigeria. Like what part of Nigeria?
I am from the southwest.
Lagos?
Lagos. I grew up in Lagos. My parents are from another state, Ondo State, but I grew up in Lagos. I was born in Lagos. I did all of my studying in Lagos. So we call it primary. It's not middle school, preschool.
Yeah.
It's nursery, primary school, secondary school, then uni. Did all of that in Lagos. Did my, the only thing I didn't do in Lagos was my service year. So we have this thing in Nigeria where like when you're done with your higher education or college, whatever it is, you have to serve the country for 1 year. And they just like pick a random place somewhere else you go, you do the service and then you're done. So I did that. I was posted to, that was when I worked in the army. That was in Oyo State. But yeah, prior to that, I hadn't moved out of Lagos. While I was debating for the uni, I did move out of Lagos every now and then, but predominantly it's just like Lagos, everything I did. And then I came over here.
Do you miss it back home?
Do I miss Lagos? Yes, I do. I miss the vibe. Like, and that is why like people think I'm trying to be maybe like I'm trying to grab attention or I'm just trying to put people off. Like, why is he always playing loud music? It's just the Lagos thing. Like that is how I can make myself feel close to home. It's the music, and I take it everywhere with me. Like in the car, at home, at work, everywhere. There's always African music or music playing in the back, and it's just that kind of it helps me maintain kinship.
Totally.
Mentally. So yeah, absolutely.
Me personally, I love Burna Boy and Mr. Easy.
Oh my god, I have a playlist. I think I'll share with you guys after.
Yeah.
And it's just one I've been collecting like for this year, right? I have it. I'm an Apple Music guy, so I update it predominantly on Apple Music. But I have this song shift. It helps convert like playlists from Apple Music to other platforms. So I have
dope.
like a Spotify version as well.
Nice.
And I've been sharing like with all of my friends, and like I'm gonna drop links with you guys like by the time, maybe at the end of the podcast or whatever, you guys can share with your friends, and that would be cool. Right?
You know, I love the album. There's one by Mr. Easy. It's called London to Lagos, I think.
Man,
I love that album. It's so good.
It's a great album. I think that album came out 2017 or 2018.
Was it around the time you moved?
2019? Yeah, it was. So I moved in 2020. So I think it came out 2019, right? Because I remember there was one song on that album. I Miss You Bad.
Yeah, I love that song. That's my favorite song out of it too.
And I had this service here crush like that. So anytime I hear that song, I remember her. So yeah, just brings back memories, man.
That's dope.
So you mentioned that you served army for 1 year.
Yeah.
How was the experience like?
Oh my God. I think I'm very grateful for that experience because it exposed me to a version of leadership that I hadn't experienced before. So normally, like leadership in regular civilian settings is people come together, they select someone to lead, and like you have to be democratic and like listen to people and whatnot, which is great. It's amazing. When I served in the army, apart from just doing data analysis stuff for the engineer brigade, I was also the liaison officer. So the liaison officer is basically the corps member. So we are called corps members. People who go to serve are called corps members. So of all the corps members in the barracks, the army selects one corps member to act as the go-between between them and the other corps members. So you're like the person in charge of the corps members, right? And the position is actually democratic. Like the process of choosing the liaison officer is done democratically. But once you enter the position, you are expected to dispense your duties like a military person. So it was weird because I'll be talking to like my superiors, right? And I'll be like, I'm trying to tell the coppers about so and so, but they are not really listening to me. And then they look at me and they go like, you're supposed to just tell them what to do. Like, so leadership in the military is a lot different from leadership like in civilian settings, right? And obviously it's not my style to lead in a very do what I say. I'm not that kind of person. But then the expectations from your superiors is we don't expect this to be a problem because we just expect you to tell people what to do and let them fall in line that way. So I had to find my own unique approach to leadership where it's like I'm getting people along, but I'm also making them know that, look, I fall under a chain of command. And if I'm telling you to do something, I'm not just making this shit up. Like, I have to report to somebody else who doesn't even give a crap about
what you have to say.
Like, they don't even care. Like, I'm trying to be the good guy over here, right? And I did enjoy that experience. Just like, really, I think that really challenged me to like just improve my ability to communicate. Like, there's a way you can lead people, and it's like they are the ones that you make it seem like they come up with the things. Like, you want someone to do something, but instead of telling them, you kind of find a way to make them come up with the idea by themselves. So it's like, oh, now it's you that wants to do it. Right. And I'm just assisting you in getting it done, right? So like you learn really creative ways in, getting people to cooperate and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was one hell of a ride. I'm grateful for that experience. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's like my analogy on leadership too is like, I feel like the best leaders are the one who pass the torch of knowledge to the people who follow them. Yeah. And they further become, a leader of their own. Yeah. I feel like that's the whole point of leadership. It's not like keeping the leadership all closed up in yourself, but to distribute it.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things that you do when you get selected, like when I go like as a liaison officer, is you are allowed to choose your cabinet, right? So like people who will be in charge of different things, and you guys work as a committee. So that one is you selected, just like in any other democratic scenario. And I had to pick strategically because you had to like pick people that had some level of influence, right? So there were people that already had groups. So you had to like understand like this is the system, these are the different groups, and strategically pick people. And then like you said, empower those people, right? Because if you have in your committee or like in your cabinet leaders who are as strong as you or even stronger, it makes handling things a lot easier. So it's not you trying to pull 100 people. It's like 20 units with equally capable leaders. Like it just makes things really easy. So yeah, that was really spot on in terms of like empowering the people that you work with. You know, the more leaders that you have, the easier it is for everyone to just like move along.
Yeah, especially the pardon my voice.
It's alright, man.
Especially the idea of leading by example.
Yeah.
Because like, I'll speak from my personal experience. I grew up in an all-boys hostel 7 years. Like grade 6 to grade 12. It was almost like an army life. You have a set routine. You wake up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
You have your seniors.
Yeah.
And who know more than you. You have to follow what they say.
Yeah.
You do that. And then it's your time to be the senior.
Yeah.
How you lead then?
Yeah.
Because suppose you want to tell your juniors that, okay, there's a football tournament coming up. You better start practicing. But as a leader, if you're not good at that sport, I don't think they're going to listen to you.
Nope.
Right?
Nope, yeah.
But if you're really good at it and people recognize that,
you
don't even have to say it.
Yeah.
Like they'll do it themselves. Why? Because they they're inspired by you.
Yeah.
Right? And you just have to give them exactly what Pranav said, the torch.
Yeah.
To just light.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Like leadership responds to competence. At some point, like if the person everybody else is looking at doesn't appear to be a competent person, leadership is going to be very difficult. So to an extent, it's like you have to embody what you want to see in every single person. Yeah. Like even to the person who gives the least fucks, you need to understand that how you portray yourself and how you respond to situations, how you respond to challenges influences every single person. And as soon as you give up on something or you decide something is no longer important, passively or unconsciously, that information is relayed to everybody else. Yeah. Right. So it's like, it's a hard job, but again, if you surround yourself with like people who are equally competent as well, it's just going to be a lot easier. Just light those touches. All right, you guys go dispense that.
Yeah.
Like,
There's a very, sorry.
No, get to say that.
So there's a very famous saying, it's not the message, it's the messenger.
I've heard that, but I've heard the other one. Don't kill the messenger.
Don't kill the messenger.
Yeah, well, go on.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want to say that like, if you're a leader who leads by example, that whatever you say, of course it matters, but what matters more is who you are.
Yeah.
Totally.
100%.
So do you have like any stories that, or not just like multiple stories, but like one specific story from that journey, like 1 year of serving, that you still remember like it was yesterday?
So there was one thing that happened shortly after I took office. There was this incident, like someone's room got boggled, right? So it's weird because it didn't have like, so the buildings in the barracks, right? Some of the buildings like behind, like at the back, I don't know, how do I describe this now? So like there's the front of the building and then there's the back, right? So the fronts have doors, blah, 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 but like behind, that's like where the bathrooms are, because it's this weird apartments where like the bathrooms are conjoined with the rooms, whatever. Oh yeah. So it's easy for, if someone wanted to do something nasty, like break in and enter like a house, like it's really easy to do. So one of those happened and they stole a bunch of stuff, and it at first when it happened, like in my head, I'm like, okay, they stole this person's stuff. Okay, we'll go take it to military police, and that'll be the end of that. And then the next thing I know, the following morning, it's like my boss is there. My boss's boss is there. My boss's boss's boss is there. And I'm like, this is, someone just stole something. Like, why do I have to report to Major General Azinta, head of the 2nd Division, because someone broke into a room? And it was just one of those really weird things that like the situation just kept escalating. Like the next thing I know, I'm going to like the division head in Oyo State, and it's like the military police took over the case, and there are like people calling from Abuja. So Abuja is the capital of Nigeria, and people are calling from Abuja and like, oh, we heard something happened in the barracks. What is going? And the military is a very funny thing. When something like, so I'm responsible directly, but if someone calls from FCT, they won't even talk to me. He would just call like
superiors
and just start speaking to that person. And then the next thing you hear is that person will just be like, who is even in charge of the comment? Who is David? What the hell? Like, so this thing extended for months. And the one thing I knew I took away from that challenge was just like, it tested my perseverance. Because mind you, while all of that was happening and I had to go for all of these different meetings and explanations, because it was like, oh, we suspect some people in the barracks did it, some barrack boys, but then barrack boys are also like children of ex-military, so you can't just directly implicate them because other people like connected to other people, whatever it is. But it just really made me like just learn perseverance, right? Like just, this is the story, this is what happened, calmly explaining myself to person after person. That took a lot out of me, but it just made me realize that like at the end of the day, like leadership will test your endurance, like because you have to do that and still do everything else, like making sure everybody goes for PTs on Wednesdays and Fridays, making sure coppers are doing this and doing that and doing the normal rounds, like all of those things still have to happen. And I have this fire I have to also equally put out that is equally as important. So you learn how to put so many things on your plate and keep it going and just like dig deep into yourself and find whatever it is, that inner strength. Yes, that's what I was looking for. Inner strength. Yeah.
Because I feel like it's really easy to get frustrated in those situations and like give up.
Absolutely.
But that's not what an inspired leader, what Nikhil was saying.
Absolutely.
You know, like how Simon Sinek says that to be an inspired leader.
Yeah, 100%.
Because that's like the whole point. Like, if you want, like, you know, like, either you develop this personality that, okay, I'll be a follower for the rest of my life, or you want to take that challenge to be a leader. It's not going to be easy.
No.
It doesn't have an easy life.
No.
You will screw up. Yeah. You will get 10 different situations, like you said, multiple fires to put out.
Yep.
Are you capable of doing it? If yes, you will become an inspired leader because people will look up to you. They can rely on you. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like one other thing you don't get to realize, I don't know. People might have different opinions on this, but I think at the end of the day, like there is an aspect of leadership that is done alone.
Totally.
Like there is an aspect of leadership that you can't share. Like in as much as even if you have people around you, they're like, we want to know, we want to help you, we want to be there for you, we want to help, There's an aspect of leadership that when it comes down to it, it's you and the problem. It's like a boxing match. Like your coach can tell you everything, your friends and fans can be in the stands. At the end of the day, it's you in the ring with the challenge or with the opponent, right? So it's like, you go through that a couple of times and it just does something to you on the inside, man. It's like, it's painful, but then when it's done, it's like you acquire, you know, the power of that challenge. Rewarding. And it makes you stronger to deal like with the next one. Right?
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the year's over. And now David developed these amazing leadership skills. How was the journey to Canada? How was the move?
All right. So the journey to Canada actually started before I even went for service, right?
Oh yeah.
So I finished college, and there's this big opportunity to relocate to the UK. Goldman Sachs came over to University of Lagos. That's where I did my uni, by the way. And so they're like recruiting students like just straight out of engineering, computer science, giving them developer positions in London, and I'm like, this is my chance, like this is it. And I do the whole thing, go through the interviews, and then I get to the final interview and I flunk it because I didn't have enough technical experience, right? So and it was weird. I feel like I was mismatched in that final interview because I was trying to play to my business strengths. But then I got paired like with its technical team. So it became like a tech review. Fine. I'm like, oh my days, what the heck is going on? So I didn't get it and I felt really bad about that. And that was the moment when I decided like, okay, this didn't work out. What am I going to do next? So I started looking at like, okay, what's popping? Computer science, engineering, blah, blah, blah. So in my final semester in college, I took... Actually, my final year, so the course had two components in each semester. The first one was artificial intelligence. And then the second one was automated reasoning, right? And I remember even the first day of the AI class, I didn't attend. Like I don't even know what I was in, but I missed it. And so some of my classes were like, David, you're going to like this class. Like, we feel like you are going to like this class. And then I attend the class, and the professor, Dr. Adegbola, is an engineer guy, but he taught the class like a philosopher. Ooh. So the course was about AI, but it was more concerned with how we think about thinking and how we think about like the philosophy around thoughts. And I was like, whatever it is I'm going to do in future it has to be something in this field. So I began to like just go down that path of data, right? So obviously I'm like, okay, I don't like programming. So what's the programming language I can learn that can allow me grow in this field and would not fry my brains? And it was like Python. So I got this Python course, the O'Reilly books. I don't know if you've seen those O'Reilly books. I always have these really amazing illustrations on the front cover. Like they always have that, like, okay. Are you what? Computer science?
I'm in business. He's in business too. Yeah,
business. Okay.
Yeah,
so
major in finance. Yeah.
But O'Reilly they have these books with these really amazing illustrations, like animals on each subject matter, whatever. So I take the one on Python, and then I read another one on Python for data analysis, and I just like read those books like cover to cover. Then I go for service, do the whole thing, and I get back. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I have this skill. You want to go out of the country. So it was either the UK or Canada. My brother was in the UK. And the UK was bloody expensive, right? So if you have parents that pay for your fees, and I'm fortunate, I'm grateful to God for that I have parents that like could pay for my tuition. I didn't have to like study and work and pay my tuition myself. I think that is a privilege that I'm very grateful for. So if they were going to have done that while I was studying in the UK, it would have been way more expensive. So Canada was a cheaper alternative, right. And they were not as stringent with the requirements of how you can get to stay back when you're done with your program, right? So they're like, you come to Canada study, we'll give you, if you spend 2 years studying, you get 2 years back for your work permit. Yeah. I'm like, that's a good deal. Like, let's do Canada. And then I started applying to Canada, and it feels like Canada doesn't even want me. Like, I'm not even joking. I put in like 5 applications. I applied to U of T, I applied to Winnipeg, I applied to UBC, like put in for all. I'm like, okay, all right, this is strange. Nobody's getting back to me with any offers, nothing. Like, am I that shitty of an applicant? And then I had a friend of mine, we served together in the army, and she was already in Canada then. So she was at Sax Polytechnic, and she said, like, there's an amazing computer science program at U of R, like, you should apply. Like, U of R, like, what's that? How do they even pronounce that? Regina? What's that? So, like, just applied. They were like, oh, yeah, cool. I mean, I've applied to, like, 5. The 6th one is not going to hurt anybody, right? Like, apart from my feelings, whatever. And then I apply, and I get into the U of R. It's like, U of R was like, yeah, man, David, come over. Like, well, come on. I'm like, okay. And so, yeah, man, it's like, I start classes in August. This was COVID, right? So, COVID times were just weird it was just weird generally. Totally. So I got the admission, I could start classes, but I had not gotten my visa, so I couldn't be in Canada. So I was taking classes remotely, but everything was remote anyway, so it wasn't a problem. And then I get my visa in November, and then December 16, I leave Lagos for the first time to travel out of Nigeria. I come down to Canada December 17, and the Canadian adventure just was in full swing, man. Yeah, man. It was unreal. I remember describing. My brother asked me like, so when I got to Canada, and like I FaceTimed him, and he was like, "How do you feel?" And I said, "It feels like I'm having a very good dream, and I'm stuck in it. Like, imagine the best dream you could possibly ever have, and then imagine realizing that, oh, this is not a dream. Like, you are stuck. Like, this is your new reality now. Right. Like." That was how it felt. It was
like a limbo.
It was like, oh my days, like it was amazing. Yeah.
So you look back in 4 years now. So, what's a reflection point?
Oh my God, man! Like, first thing first is I think I've been very blessed and fortunate over the last 4 years, because at many different points I could have made the wrong decisions and things would have turned out differently. One major mindset I had was, so because I was still trying to prove something to myself because of that Goldman Sachs thing I didn't get. When I came into Canada, my goal was, I'm going to finish my CS degree and I'm going to rise to like the very top of the data industry. Like, you didn't let me in Goldman Sachs. I'm going to get into like the top tech firms just so I can point it back and like thumb my nose and be like, yeah, I got here, you guys, right? So I came in here, and like, even when I was applying for like my co-op semesters, like I wasn't considering like anything in Saskatchewan. Like, I was just looking at, I want to go Toronto, Ontario, like BC, like the happening places in Canada, and just like, where are the tech hubs there, and just rise. That was all that was on my mind, like get a very good job and blah, blah, blah. And then I remember, well, obviously I would go through the interviews, and even those were not forthcoming as well.
Sorry.
And so I had some offers here in Regina, right? And I was talking to one of my friends, Dio. He was like one of the very few people that I really used to spend time with. He's moved now with his family to Calgary. And so I had this opportunity between like this bank thing and then the position at the university with Dr. Howard Hamilton. The bank one was going to be like just a regular, do some data stuff, but like the one with the university was this really cool project where they were trying to figure out how you can detect hidden messages in phone calls, right? So the Ministry of Policing has like a place where they would keep people, prisoners, inmates, whatever, right? And then these people that you would expect them to be penitent or like, trying to be better people. They will still be trying to do like criminal activities.
Sounds like some real FBI shit, dude. What the hell is this?
They'll still be trying to like, reach out to the people on the outside and still like do stuff from the inside, which was crazy. So they had this project where I was like, is there a way we can decode like hidden messages, like in just regular stuff that they're saying? Crazy project. I'm like, okay, first of all, that sounds like some 007 stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sign me up for that. And so, yeah. So Dio asked me, like, if you had to choose between, like, these two projects, like, which one really speaks to what you're passionate about? Like, which one is it going to be? And I'm like, I'm not going to lie. It's going to be this government one, right? It sounds really interesting, really amazing. It wasn't paying as much, but it was really going to push, like, my knowledge or just even drive my passion. So I took that. And then that changed the way I thought about Saskatchewan. Like, it just opened my mind to see, like, if you look around you, there are opportunities for the things you think are, like, let me put it this way. For any dream or ambition that seems far away, that you think you need to take a really huge leap to get to, there is always going to be a simpler, smaller step that is closer to you that you can take, that would get you closer. And it won't be as crazy to you as making this long leap, right? So I began to learn that and just be like, you can build and have the most amazing career in AI or data, but like you don't even know how to get there. And I think that's one of the things that life does to humble you. Like most times we feel because we know what we want, we know how to get it. Knowing what you want and how you get it are separate things.
Totally.
And life would fuck with you because it will let you know that, like, look, there are a million ways I can give you what you want. But if you're going to act stubborn and want to insist on your own way to get in it, I will take you all over. I will take you everywhere. You would think you're chasing all the different things that should get you where you're going, and you won't get there. Till you're just like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. I give up. This is what I want. How I get there, that's up to you, life. Like, let's go. Then the adventure begins, right? So I did that with Dr. Hamilton, and then that opened up the opportunities at Saxtel. Saxtel, that was where I was able to dive into like large language models. So I also did use large language models with the government project, but it wasn't as much as I did on the Saxtel project because the government project was like 2021. Large language models, only if you were like a data nerd, you would have known about large language models, right? Then 2022 did the Saxtel thing, and it's like, did the project, and it was like super easy. I'm like, this is a new type of model. Like, this is a new, different kind of beast. And in that moment, I already knew what I wanted to do for like my capstone project. So I come back to the university after my second co-op semester. I switched from a course-based to a project-based so I can skip 3 classes and instead do 1 capstone project. And then I spend my fall semester working on my capstone project and then instructing. I was a sessional lecturer for a database course. So I'm doing that and taking that course. And in that class were like some students who would later on in 2023 get involved in the 24-hour startup competition at the Cultivator. So they had an idea and stuff, and they were like, yeah, David, we've seen you teach a couple classes. We think you would be good at presenting or pitching this idea. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I was just going to attend and not do anything, but like, since you guys have asked, let's do it. And so I go for the Cultivator 24-hour startup challenge. And our team wins. And it's amazing. It's like you get to meet these amazing people. I met Paul, Hugh, Zakia, everyone, the entire crew. And it was just this really amazing moment. And I'm like, yeah. In addition to being in this field of data and AI, I am also going to be a founder. And that is when that got injected into my system. So I go back, finish up my degree, graduate, work at Precision AI, which is an AI startup, right? And I just put myself under the tutelage of Dan McCann, the CEO. And it wasn't even one of those mentorships where it's like every single day I'm going to disturb him, like, oh, what do you have for me today? Like, no, it was just one of those things where it's like we had conversations every now and then, but most of it was just like passively observing, like, so this is what it looks like to be the CEO of an AI startup. Like, just watching him go through like 10 meetings in a day and just how he manages his energy, how he's able to address situations as they arise. I remember one of the most important pieces of advice that he gave me was like, as a founder, there would always be things that are asking for your attention. Always. There would always be fires. Always. And your job is to figure out how you want to dedicate resources into putting out the fires one at a time. So like, you need to look at it. Everything is important. Everything is there to you, but you need to figure out like, this is more important than this.
Just prioritize
and
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Prioritize that. Put that out first, while keeping your eye on the other stuff on the other side. And then, so like, yeah, I did that for a year, just like learning the culture, getting enmeshed more into like the ecosystem here in Saskatchewan and AI and startups, all of that. And then like November of 2023, I was fully persuaded that, yeah, I'm going to start my own thing. And I feel like there is that element where being a founder is, and we can get into this like when we get into like, I don't know, the spiritual components of what this podcast is going to be like. But I feel like founders should not start till they've gotten to that point where in their hearts, they are fully persuaded that this is something I want to do. And it's something that I'm convinced I want to stick at doing, right? Like I feel your decision to be a founder should not be driven by external validation. And not external validation in the sense that I want people to clap for me because I'm a founder. I mean, if you need somebody else to convince you to be a founder as a reason for you to be a founder, then you're not ready. It needs to be something that comes from within. Because when the really hard times come, the person that told you to start is not going to be there. They will be doing their own thing, fixing their own problems in life. So if the only reason that is making you keep going is, oh, this person said I was going to make a great founder, that you're in trouble. That decision needs to come from within, right? So for me, like November 2023, yeah, internally, right? Or like my intuition, it was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. It's time. Let's go. So I wrapped up my work at Precision AI, all of that kind of stuff. And then just January 2024, full-time Laroye AI. Let's go. So yeah, that has been a journey over the last 4 years, and yeah, man.
Guide me through the day when you were like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this." What was going on in your mind? So you wrapped up your work, you came home.
Yeah.
What was going on in your mind at that very moment, at that very day? Guide us through that.
So something happened when we did the. So I did the 24-hour startup thing, and then. Laroye AI got accepted into the START program at the Cultivator, right? So I did the START program, At the end of the START program, like, and I think this was like maybe a month for like 6 weeks out, like after the program, they have this session where they just call all the founders and then they ask us to like reflect on the time, whatever, what next steps, that kind of stuff. Hannah Castle was still a program director at Cultivator then.
We shot an episode with
her. Yeah. Hannah is amazing. Hannah, when you watch this, like, Hannah is amazing. Hannah is totally super amazing. And so she put this question to the founders, like, 6 months from now, like, what are you going to be doing, right? And people, at this time, I was still working at Precision AI. So everybody said different stuff, like, I'm going to do this, going to do that, going to da-da-da-da-da-da. And she asked me, and in my head, I was just like, 6 months from now, that would be like November, right? I see Laroye AI just like surfing this massive AI wave, because 2020, I mean, it's still almost similar in 2024, but there's a lot more, it's starting to take a lot more shape and form now. But like 2023, AI was like the Wild West. It was like the gold rush. It's like, this is, I don't want to bring this too early, but I guess I have to. It was like the beginning of the great pirate age. It's like AI is here. Every industry, different programs, like different problems, everything is up for grabs.
It's like Web 2.0 back in the day.
What is it?
It's like Web 2.0 back in the day.
Yeah, like it's like
the wave is coming.
As much, the only thing that can hinder your success is how much you think you deserve, like in this stake of what is to come. And I'm like, yeah, man, like 6 months from now, I see Laroye AI just on that AIC, just catching those waves and like building amazing stuff. Like that is what I want to do. That is the kind of world I want to wake up to 6 months from then. And then I said it, and she was like, okay, cool. And that was the end of that meeting. I went back to my regular life, like at Precision. And then it's October/November 2023. And I don't know if it was like my unconscious that kind of remembered what I said and brought it back, but like it just surged back like, David, this is not what we're supposed to be doing now. This right now, we are supposed to be getting all the things we need to get Laroye AI active in this AI world. Getting that vision, that voice out. That is what we're meant to be doing right now. And every other thing in my life just kind of like went, nah, this is amazing stuff. Like PAI I was working on, like really cutting edge. Like we were building drones that could fly out into fields and spot spray weeds. It was amazing, sick stuff. Like I'm not even trying to gas it. Like it was amazing, but I just knew in that moment, like, yeah, it is time for Laroye AI to go plant its own flag in this AI thing that is going on, right?
It's like, you know how after a theater, like the curtains just close? I feel like that's what you probably were feeling, if that analogy works. You know, like on your current life, you're like, hey, the curtains are slowly closing and a new chapter is going to come out. A new David is born.
100%. And I think maybe like to some extent it was easier for me to recognize that moment because it's not the first time in my life when I've felt within myself like it's time to switch into something else, right? Like, so when it got to that point, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's time to do Laroye AI. I knew that feeling because I'd experienced it before. Like I knew what it meant. I knew why I was feeling that way. And I knew that with the way my life works, like this, if I don't respond to this now, like I won't again. You know, let me bring up this story. There's this. Yeah. So I watch a lot of One Piece. One Piece is like my number one. Like,
by the way, that's anime, guys. For all you nerds who doesn't know that.
Yo, let me say this. Like,
including me.
I'm all for One Piece supremacy, man. And there's this scene in the early chapters of One Piece, right? So Zoro is Luffy, who is the main character's is his first mate. Zoro is Luffy's first mate. And Zoro's dream is to be the world's strongest swordsman.
Is that the green haired guy?
The guy that has green hair.
Bandana.
He wears the bandana like. Yeah. So anyways, bandana is like really serious, like fuck shit up, right? So Zoro's dream is to be the world's strongest swordsman. And then he meets the world's strongest swordsman. Like really early in the story. Like you would expect for that kind of meeting to happen like maybe at the end. Like when he's fully strong, like yeah, it's time to challenge. But like even Zoro within himself, when he meets him, knows that like there's a chance I might lose. But my dream is to be the world's strongest swordsman. So I have to respond to this opportunity right now. Now, Mihawk, who is the world's strongest swordsman, obviously knows Zoro is not ready. But he respects the fact that he wants to fight him. So he brings out like a tiny butter knife to fight against him, like, which is really weird, like he's disrespecting him, but whatever. So Mihawk really beats the crap out of Zoro, like he breaks his swords and stuff, and like he stabs him. And Zoro just stands there. And it's like, okay, so this is it. I've broken your swords, I've stabbed you. Back off. Give up. And Zoro is like, I don't know what is going to happen after this, but I feel like if I back down now, I would never pursue this dream again. So it's like, you either kill me or I don't know what you're going to do, but like, I'm not backing out. Like, I'm not backing down from this. So that was how we felt like in November. It was like, I either build Laroye now or I back down from my entrepreneurial dreams. And I'm not willing to back down. So it's like, life, here we go, man. Like, you fucking stabbed me in the chest with this craze to do this thing, and I'm just not going to back down from it, right? So it was one of those kind of moments. And yeah, man, God is great. We're doing it.
It's like every time Goku goes Super Saiyan, you're just like... Because that's like the whole thing, like with Dragon Ball, is the main character Goku. Everybody thinks like, okay, now's the limit. So the guy goes Super Saiyan 1, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, 4, God, Ultra God, then like Ultra Instinct. He doesn't stop. And I feel like that's just how you gotta be in life too.
Yeah.
You are the only person who can put the limits on yourself. 100%, nobody else.
100%.
You can blame the external world like, hey, my life is fucked. My parents don't love me enough, or like so-and-so thing happened. what's that gonna do? You're not making your life any better. You're just like claiming that victim mindset. And I think we talked about like this quote in like a previous podcast too, where like the victim mindset will have you dancing with the devil and then complaining you're in hell. You 100%. Are the only person who's putting that mindset, that mentality, those limits on yourself. And paradoxically, you are the only person who has the powers to break through those chains.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
100%. And it's like completely, like with my entire heart, I believe what you're saying. The only thing is, I don't. It's one of those things where if you're trying to talk to people about like challenges and pushing yourself, like there's a limit to how much you can. It's one of those things where you have to let people get it. Like the mentality of you're trying to do something, you hit the challenge. The mindset of, okay, there is a challenge here. I'm incapable of overcoming this challenge. So what that means is something needs to happen to me, right? Either I get better or stronger to overcome the challenge, or I figure out some way to get around it, right? But that mindset of we are not living here till we find a way over this thing, it's not something you can force on people. Like you just need to let people get to a point in their lives where they realize like, and this is speaking to the victim mentality that I mentioned, right? Because it's like, I understand people with the victim mentality. Like I understand learned helplessness. I understand this because I come from a country where, you know, you live through decades of, you know, really shitty governance. And even when you investigate it deeper, it's like, it's not like the people in the government themselves don't know what is good, but even they themselves are also under like this shitty world system that benefits from the fact that these places are underdeveloped and, you know, so it's easier for them to be controlled and whatever it is. So it's like, if you look at people in that kind of system, you can understand there's a reason for them to play the victim card or for them to have acquired learned helplessness, right? You know, it's just like that thing, that experiment where it's like, you tie a horse to a tree, right? And then initially the horse is like trying to, you know, break free, but then just because of that rope, it learns the limit of how far it can move. You know, it learns that radius. Sure. And then after a while, like you even take off the rope and the horse just never wanders beyond that limit because it's acclimatized to that, right? So many people operate that way, you know, and sometimes you just look at like, I wish I can just grab, you know, a stick and bop them in the head. Like, wake up, like this limit is in your mind. Like it's not real. It's imaginary. Whatever you think is stopping you from being who you want to be or doing what you want to do, starting that podcast, that job, that business, whatever it is, it's in your mind. Like limits are a mental construct. It's not even social, it's mental, it's in your head, right? And it's like, in as much as you want to really just go to the top of a mountain and scream like, limits don't exist, people be free as you want, like ultimately people need to come to that realization by themselves, right? So it's like, yeah, the best you can do is live as freely as you can, and hopefully people see that and it inspires them to break those mental limits that they have on themselves. Yeah.
I love that story about the anime that he said. Like, I don't watch One Piece or any
my
anime.
God, you should watch One Piece.
I know. I mean, I've tried, but
maybe
it's not my thing.
I forced him to watch, have you seen the movie? It's like pretty sad, like A Silent Voice.
A Solid Voice?
A Silent Voice.
No, I haven't seen A Silent Voice.
So it's like a really, I don't want to say depressing, but like it's a pretty sad.
It was depressing.
It was, okay.
Why did you even start him from there, man? Like,
no, I mean, okay, look, I was like, okay, so he is into like movies instead of TV shows. Like he is very picky about his TV shows. He's like the type of guy who's like gonna watch Breaking Bad 10 times, like, or How I Met Your Mother.
Okay,
so I was like,
that's a good one, by the way.
Right, it's a lovely show. Yeah. So he's like, hey, recommend me like a good movie. In that time when I was watching anime, I was like, hey, let me recommend you this thing. This dude stopped after that first movie. He's like, I'm never gonna watch it anymore.
Like I saw a lot of animes when I was growing up. Yeah. Like one of my favorites was the Beyblade Metal Fusion Metal Masters. Yeah, I was like, one of my favorites.
Beyblade takes me really. I was like,
oh, me too.
Yeah,
Ash.
Like, man, I was like,
Pokemon. No, there was another Ash in there.
Was he?
That was in Pokemon.
No,
Ash.
but there was wasn't it like the OG Beyblade?
Yeah, the one where like fucking demons live
Yeah,
inside.
that's what I'm saying. It was like this big. It was
His name was Rayuga.
No, that was Jenga. That was after. But like the OG Beyblade, the guys were like this short.
Yeah.
Big ass eyes.
Yeah.
I think that was an
That
Ash
was the
too.
one, man. By the way, Beyblade was too intense for a tournament about like. Why the hell does a dragon spirit need to live inside your Beyblade for a flipping Beyblade for whatever?
Yeah, sorry, you were saying.
But yeah,
The
so
anime
like that story,
Yeah.
I love that the guy,
Yeah.
whatever his name
Zoro,
was,
yeah.
he wasn't ready to win,
Yeah.
right? And it's the story of Rocky Balboa. Like
Yeah.
Rocky wasn't ready to beat Apollo Creed,
Yeah.
and he did, but he just had that mindset. You know what? Even if I don't beat him, it'll take his soul to beat me.
Yeah.
Every time Apollo Creed hit Rocky, he would go down, he would come up.
Yeah.
He would go down, he would come up.
Get back up.
And there was one point that Apollo
Yeah.
Creed was like, you know what? Now I win. That motherfuckers go back. He turns around, he says, how the hell did he get up, man? How the hell? Who is he? He's not a great boxer, definitely.
No.
I can beat him, but how the hell is he doing that? Because Rocky knows, even if I'm not ready, I'm not going to let that slide that easy.
Yeah, I'm not going to back out of this. Like, yeah,
Right.
that's it. That's it. Like, in Nigeria, we say we die here. That's how we say it in Nigeria. Like, we die here. It's like another One Piece story. Like, so they are going against this really strong guy. Kaido is like the strongest person in like in the One Piece verse at the time. And so they go on the island and they burn their boats. They burn their ships.
Oh damn.
Well, they don't burn the main one. They don't burn the Thousand Sunny, which is the main One Piece ship. But like the other boats they used to get to the island, they burn it. And it's just this message to themselves that like whatever happens on this island, there's no turning back. There is no escape.
Yeah.
Even if they beat the living crap out of, we know there is nothing we are going to escape on. So it's like we do this or we die. That's it. You know? Yeah.
So I was in an army camp back in India.
Yeah.
So I was like in a brass band.
Nice.
And we were supposed to like live that army lifestyle. And there was a very famous saying amongst the crew, amongst the army people. So I'll translate it later, but in Hindi it means या तो झंडा गाड़ के आऊँगा या झंडे में लहरा के आऊँगा, which means if I'm going for a war, either I'll have my flag
Engraved,
What do you call
like basically like planted in the ground.
Yeah, planted in the ground, or I'll be draped in the flag. So basically, when an army person dies, they like his body is
they're
in
wrapping the flag. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's either or. There's nothing as I'll be a little injured and then I'll come back. No. Either I kill it or I get killed.
Yeah, we do this or that's it. Yeah. And yeah, like so we don't like 100%. I don't. And people mention this, and it's like, and I really love for us to like get into the execution of this mindset, right? Because if people, I don't know, like people might listen to this part of the podcast and think we are or I am pushing for this extremist attitude where it's like work yourself to the bone and kill yourself. Like, nah, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, this is mental. Like, there is the mental state, and then there is the physical execution, right? So the mental state is the one where in your mind you either do this or you die. But in the physical execution, you have to pace yourself out because the mind and the body operate on different frequencies. Like, there are things the mind can do, but the body has limits. Personally, I think the mind is limitless, right? But the body has limits, right? Your body has limits. There's a limit to how long you can go without sleep. There's a limit to how long you can go without food, without water, without regular exercise, without going outside to take in good air. So you need to be aware of those limits in as much as you still maintain your mental perspective, right? So keep the mental perspective 100%, but understand your body, right? And take care of your body because you need your body to achieve the things in your mind. So you need to take care of your body like how you would take care of a machine. Make sure it's properly oiled, it's properly rested, you attend to it, you understand what it means. Like, once you start having those headaches, it's time, rest. Like, resting doesn't mean you've given up. You see what I'm saying? Taking care of yourself doesn't mean you no longer care about achieving those dreams. So in as much as 100% I advocate for planting yourself firmly in the mind, you also need to be very, very smart about how you manage your energy as a human being, take care of yourself, and just attend to stuff. So, yeah, just had to put that out there.
Yeah.
So people don't think I'm advocating for the crazy burnout, work 100 hours a week mind. Like, nah, that's not what I'm saying. That's a different thing. In fact, if you meet people that think success is predicated on overworking themselves to the bone, they don't understand the game. They probably think they're playing a short-term game. If you understand that you're playing a long-term game, if you understand you're playing a game that's going to last decades.
Infinite game.
If you're playing an infinite game, then you know you need to take care of your body. Because nobody, no game, bro.
Yeah.
Nobody, no game. Like, dead men can't play the game of life. So you need to stay alive, of course. So
it's like one of the stories by Simon Sinek as well, where I think he mentioned that he was writing his book.
Yeah.
But he was hitting like roadblocks after roadblocks.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't get out of that mental state where he's like, okay, I don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
I can't seem to finish this book.
Yeah.
And the next step that he did, he was like, okay, I'm going to just go for a walk.
Yeah.
And just go outside. Just be in nature.
Yeah.
Just feel whatever's around me. Because he's been cooped up in like that room, in that 4x4 room, facing his head in front of like papers.
Yeah.
And trying to write. But that's not how shit works.
Nope.
And when he did, went for a walk, ideas are popping, churning. The wheels are churning.
Absolutely.
Because you need that change of atmosphere as well. You need to be outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there are many ways to like even, and that's another thing again about the body, right? It's like if sometimes the fact that you can't get something done doesn't necessarily mean it can't be done at that time. It probably means there are some other things that need to happen or that you need to plug into for the answer to emerge, right? So it's like, let's say, for example, you're trying to write whatever it is, or you're trying to, this one happens a lot to programmers, you're trying to fix a bug in a code and you've been there, sat at your laptop for like 4 hours, 5 hours, you can't figure out what is wrong. Like sometimes stepping away allows, and I'm a huge believer in people tapping into like all the different modes of thinking, right? So you might have heard of like thinking fast, thinking slow. I think Daniel Kahneman, right? So there's like the part of your reasoning that you need for immediate tasks, right? Like someone asks you like, what is 16 times 16? Like you go into your head and you're like calculating stuff. And then there's like the thinking that happens and it's like, it just goes slowly in the background, right? Like this is the kind that you acquire over time by doing things repetitively, or just like the background information that your mind collects about stuff that allows you to realize things suddenly, right? So there is always that, and I'm like a huge believer in being able to engage both the active parts of reasoning and the subconscious parts of reasoning. And we can get into this like when we dive into like the works of people like Carl Jung and just explaining that kind of stuff. But like, being able to step away allows that other part of your thinking to kick in. And that's the part of thinking you're not aware of, but it's there and it's aware and it's gathering information. And just unplugging the conscious thinking engages the unconscious one. And when you plug it back in again, like the answers are there waiting for you, right? So it's like 100%. I agree with that.
And like you mentioned that, you mentioned about mental strength, physical strength.
Yeah.
And it's a known fact that a complete man, a complete person, is a person who's of sound mind, body, and spirituality.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned about like spirituality. So what's your take on that? How do you combine that with your mind, with your body, with who David is?
So I can talk spirituality for like a week. Like, like we can sit down and I'm happy to sit down. We just have like food, good music, and I can talk like spirituality or like just that thing like for weeks, right?
We'll make that our next podcast. We'll
like I'll be
on
down.
Our couch.
100%. Like couch comment, I'm down for that.
Yeah. And
like my journey with spirituality has been a really interesting one. So I was born, Nigeria is like really religious. Christians, so the south is predominantly Christian, the north is predominantly Muslim. Grew up in Lagos, my parents Christians, grew up in that environment. Shout out to the church. I need to say this. It's one of those places where people get to develop soft skills. All of my public speaking skills, I started developing in church, like just going up, giving recitals, the fact that I can go up on stage and speak to hundreds of people, thousands of people. It was a skill I learned like by practicing in church, whatever. So all of those benefits, I was groomed to be this spiritual, I won't say spiritual leader. Like I wasn't groomed to be like a Buddha or whatever it is, but like, they had identified like, oh, this David has like a gift for speaking, and most of the stuff that happens in spiritual circles is the transfer of knowledge. So like, oh yeah, he's going to make like a really good, maybe like pastor or something. Yeah. Like, so I was being groomed in that regards, right? I got into uni, and like my first 2 years, it was like that same environment. But then something happened to my spiritual life. I encountered reason. And by reason, I mean like pure logic. And the thing, what logic does to spirituality is it's like a hot knife just passing through butter. Like, you begin to realize so many things that you think is fact is just a belief. There are facts and there are beliefs. A fact is something that holds. This is what science prides itself on being the bastion of. Like, we can prove, the force of an object is correlated to its mass times acceleration, right? We can establish da-da-da-da-da-da. These are facts. If you do it, I do it, you get the same thing. A belief is, I think X causes Y. I can't prove it to you, but it's what I think. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But even when it doesn't work, I kind of assume like for some external other reason, it was not supposed to work at the time. So logic is like the antithesis to how spirituality works. So in my second year, I had been debating now and then, like in secondary school, but like I encountered like actual, they call it British parliamentary debating, BP debating, right? It's kind of like how debates go in the British parliamentary system, right? So like the government starts, the prime minister makes a speech, and then the leader of opposition gives his rebuttals to that and brings like a counter state, and then the deputy prime minister, who is the support of the prime minister, gives a rebuttal to that rebuttal, and then the DLO gives a rebuttal to this, and you do that.
A lot of red tape.
Oh my God. So that's how the conversation goes, right? It's like someone says something, someone else comes, rebuts that with like sounder argument. And that just really allowed, as I began to develop that debating ability, obviously I began to apply it to like my belief systems, like spirituality, right? And initially what even first happened was like, I lost all spirituality at first. Because the first thing that just took me out was the concept of punishment. So there is this, most religions, not all, I think a lot of Eastern religions are kind of like freer with this concept, but like most Western religions, especially Abrahamic religions, are predicated on the fact that when the world ends, God is going to judge everybody. And you're going to either get rewarded for good or you're going to get rewarded for evil, right? So like good people get to go to heaven, bad people get to go to hell. And then in my head, I'm like, all right, Christianity says, or Abrahamic religions say God knows everything. And this was when I began to really engage with the subject of free will. So back then, and all this happened spontaneously, by the way, right? Like I'd been developing the debating skills, and then all of a sudden when I was 19, one day, like it just hit me like all of a sudden, right? So I began to then ask myself, like, if God knows everything, God is omniscient, God can do everything, God is omnipotent, and God is everywhere. So let's imagine we are God. We are making a human being. This is Pranav. The Pranav is going to live with his parents. He's going to have, how many siblings do you have?
Only child.
He's going to be an only child. He's going to move over to Canada. He's going to start a podcast. Like God is making you. He's making you, giving you eyes. His eyes are going to be a bit, so he's going to wear glasses. God knows everything. He makes you and he puts you into the world. And then my question then became, as soon as God has decided the essence of Pranav, like all the things that constitute who Pranav is and what Pranav is going to do, does God know if you are going to go to heaven or hell?
Yes.
Does God know or does God not know? And God knows everything.
If everything is predestined, pre-decided, then he probably...
Well, if God knew, then we wouldn't be free beings, right?
So the answer reveals one of two things. If God knows, then punishing you by sending you to hell at the end of your life doesn't make sense. Because he knew as he was making you, like, this is the outcome of this person's life.
Then he shouldn't have made me if I'm a bad person.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? So then God can't put the punishment
the blame
on me, because you could have stopped that. You could have made me a better. Thank you. Yeah. Right? Or the alternative would be God actually doesn't know. But what that would mean is God doesn't know everything. And what that means is God is not supreme. There is something else above. So obviously, at that point in time, like, just looking at that thought experiment, right, and seeing the two different answers that exist just took me out of religion. Like, you know what? Fuck this. Like, I want to just pull back and examine what exactly does religion or spirituality contribute. And this was when I began, like, my foray into just reading and learning about everything else that has been said on this topic. So I went everywhere. I started from, like, Western philosophy. Obviously, you read Socrates, you read Plato, you read Aristotle, you read all of the philosophers. I really enjoyed reading about existentialism, which is basically just like philosophy around existence, living, blah, blah, blah. Read dialectics, you read Hegel, go. And then I went over to the East, and I had so much fun with Eastern philosophy. Oh my God. I encountered Taoism. I feel like Taoism is one of the chillest worldviews. Taoism is so chill because it's this principle of, like, you know what? Basically, Taoism says if you can name a thing, like the name that, I think the first verse of the scripture is, like, the name that can be named is not the absolute name, or the thing that can be known is not the absolute thing. So, like, they just admit at first, like, whatever you think is the supreme, or you think that is God, that thing in itself is beyond your ability to know. But you can understand the way, you can understand how it moves. You can catch the flow of it. So you don't know what it is itself, but you understand the flow of it. And once you get the flow of it, you basically just flow with it, like with every other thing that happens in your life, right? So Taoism was cool to learn. Dived also, like, into Hindu philosophy as well.
That's awesome.
Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu. Shiva was very interesting because it was also the same time when I was investigating mindfulness, right? And Shiva is supposed to be this eternal ascetic, Supreme. Always conscious, always meditating, doesn't give a shit about what's going on in life. Like, he's just wearing, like, tattered pants, tiger skin, ashes on his body, don't give a fuck, whatever, super fucking strong. Yeah. So that was cool as well. Read that, explored all the other, whatever Confucius had to say. And I did that. Then I brought it back home, and then I began to read African philosophy. Now, African philosophy is strange because for the most part, I'm starting to sweat. Like I told you guys, like once I get passionate about what I'm saying, I start sweating bullets.
No, it's all good, bro.
So it's like, it's easy to track Eastern and Western philosophy because a lot of that stuff is written down. But African philosophy wasn't written. It was handed down orally, right? So it's like we use a lot of songs, right? So we use songs. This is also why music is something that is very, very deeply connected to African culture, right? Because in the music, in the songs, in the language, the philosophy is embedded. So it's like, as long as people continue to sing these songs, as long as people continue to speak this language, the philosophy exists as the substrate, right? So to understand African philosophy took a while because when the British came over, right, it was for them to really crack the African psyche, they had to break African spirituality. So they had to convince us that what we believe is inferior to what they're saying. They had to convince us that, all of these thought systems that you have is what is making you guys, is what made us be able to defeat you. We defeated you. Our thinking or our philosophy is better than yours. And obviously, again, props to to the British, when they do take over things, they will destroy everything else that can remember. It's just like how Thanos says, as long as there are people that remember what was, there will always be people that will never let what can be to exist, right? So, however, I began to like retrace African philosophy. There's this professor of African philosophy, she's passed on now at the University of Lagos, Dr. Sophie Oluwole. And I just began to read her works, and it was unreal. Just reading about like the thought systems and understanding how even Africans approach spirituality. So it's like, for example, in Yoruba philosophy or spirituality, for whatever, the concept of heaven and hell that's not how it works. It's like there is God, the supreme God, and God's job was just to help humanity be better. Like he was aware of our shortcomings and our failings, but it wasn't this thing where it's like, oh, you died, now you're going to judge that, like, nah. Like there's a lot of space and accommodation for human error, which is what you would expect, right? So I did all of that. And then 3 years after, I started reconciling all of that knowledge together. So I'm like, and this is what I believe right now. So officially, I'm Christian. I go to church on Sundays, right? I think this is, and I tell people, like, I don't think I have any much power over being a Christian anymore, because the ideology had been fed into me at such a young age. Like, it just gets to a point where it's like, too many aspects of who you are is predicated on some of those truths.
You start questioning it.
Yeah, and even if no matter how much you question it, there are some aspects you cannot question because it's embedded too deep in who you are already, right? So it's like, you just admit it. Like at some point, there's a lottery of birth that happens to people. You're born into a Hindu family. So on some level, you are going to always be biased towards Hinduism than any other mindset.
It's like gravity. You just accept that
exactly. Like it just becomes one of those default settings, right? But I embrace Christianity in my own way. So it's like there are certain, and this is why, like even at church, I tell them, like, please do not try to make me be someone other Christians to aspire to, because I don't treat Christianity as dogma. I take it for its utility, and if I find something in this thought system that I found something else that works a bit better, I would plug that onto it. So there are aspects of my Christian belief that has like Taoists, like additions to it, that has like Hindu additions to it, that has like,
hybrid
like,
relationship.
Exactly. So like I'm practicing something a bit different over here, right? You see what I'm saying? So that's exactly how I say it. And I feel like ultimately organized religion has value. The fact that it makes people disciplined towards doing certain things. I think there are even studies that show, that like productivity or just even happiness levels for people that believe or practice religion is higher than people who don't. Not because the religions are true or supreme, but just having a reference point that allows you bring order to your life is valuable, right? So I do believe, and I do accept all of that. But I also think people should explore beyond what they were raised in, like read about other things. Like truth is nobody has a monopoly on truth. It's like we are different humans, different people living on different parts of the globe. We approach different things in different ways. And the fact that someone sees something differently doesn't mean it's not true. Like allow yourself be open enough to understand where they're coming from. And if you find truth in it, don't be proud to absorb it into what you believe, right? So like that's how I approach that. We can go deeper into like whatever other subtext and whatever it is, but like man, it's that's how I approach that. And I strongly believe. Sorry,
go for
it. And I strongly believe. And we can get into this maybe when you want to in a subsequent question. That like it's a really good thing for founders or leaders or visionaries, basically anyone who feels the call to build something that doesn't exist, having a solid base of beliefs or a solid belief system as your base is really helpful. I'm just going to put that out there.
It's what you said about like ending it, like close to the end, you said about like perspectives. Yeah. It's like there's no absolute truth in life.
No.
Because if there was one, we all would be believing the same thing.
Exactly.
But there's a reason why there's 15,000 different beliefs out there. It's like the analogy I use is like, what looks like a 6 to me might look like a 9 to you.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're wrong. Doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Doesn't mean you're right or I'm right.
Yeah.
It's just how things are. It's just about like respecting that. Okay, I see your point.
Yeah.
but also at the same time not just respecting it, but willing to like incorporate that knowledge into your life and be like, hey, I never thought of it that way. I'm only looking at it from like one single perspective.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why there's 15,000 of them outside.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think on some level, like, and it's like, let's look at the world, right? Like, at that time of my life when I had the privilege to explore all these different worldviews, I was 19. I didn't need a job because I had parents that could like provide. Yeah. So like I had the freedom to just kick back and pursue intellectual passions, intellectual excitement. In the real world, like people are trying to get by. People are working jobs 9 to 5. There is no space to think, right? So in a way, just believing whatever it is this point of view says relieves you of the responsibility of thinking about it yourself. So it's like, I think if people had the freedom, like let's just assume universal basic income or universal basic dividend exists right now and people did not have to work to live, I feel like we would advance significantly in the path of just like unifying knowledge, because it's something that requires time to do. Unless you are really crazy about it and you're like maybe during your lunch break at work you just sit down and you're just thinking about these things in your mind. Like, but like most people are already so preoccupied like with their day-to-day activities. They just take one school of thought and just like this is okay. This works, in most situations, and just like keep going through that. So yeah, there is the element of having time to think these things. But if I could like encourage people, it would be, please try to take the time to like listen and see things, especially if you are a leader, like, or if you're in a position where you have to deal with the opinions of other people. Like understanding whatever background information makes them who they are, makes it easier for you to understand them as well.
Any advice to how to do it?
Yeah. What do you say?
Any advice? Like, so you say like leaders are meant to do it, or not meant, like they should do it at least.
Yeah.
People should take time.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for our viewers or listeners?
Leaders should be learners. Like a leader should not just be absorbed in the task. A leader should be a person that, apart from being able to, this is what I need to do, you're also able to just move back and look at things. Like if as a leader you are only preoccupied with the task at hand, it robs you of long-term vision and not even just long-term vision in regards to what you're doing, but just not even long-term, I think that's not the right word, peripheral vision, like what is going on around you, like outside what you're doing, what is going on around you, right? So just being curious also as well, that's an important thing. Like be curious and take the time to learn about things. Like once you identify something as different, don't let it end there. Try and reconcile that difference by finding common grounds. And that's a good way to go about learning as well. Because there's 100,000 different things to learn. Totally. You can't possibly go through all of them. Yeah. But in as much as you can find, what I think believes in the concept of love, they also have a concept of love. Let me find how those two concepts are similar, right? Exactly. So it's kind of like this pattern matching thing. Right? So it's like, for example, Muslims believe in zakah, giving alms, right? Christians also believe in giving, right? So then you take those two ideas and then you overlap them. And then it becomes like a bridge between those two ideas. So you can meet a Muslim and be like, I don't really understand Islam, but I understand a pillar of Islam is giving alms. And Christ also teaches that we should give, because giving is a way we redistribute loves. And it becomes a touch point, right? And it's even also a good way in terms of also just like improving diversity. Like people talk diversity a lot as leaders, but it's just counting numbers. Like, we have a black guy and an Indian guy and a woman. We're good. What do you understand about what it means to be black? What do you understand about what it means to be Indian?
It's not the roots. Yeah.
Like how many different points of similarities can you see in these different struggles that allows you to relate to these things, right? So yeah, be a learner, right? Find similarities between what you know and those other viewpoints and try to reconcile them. It will do a world of good. And the world is just more interesting that way than sticking to one thing and only being obsessed about that one thing. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
Hey, David, so we won't keep you any longer. Honestly, we can do like 4 more podcasts with you on
how many minutes have you spent so far?
Pretty sure we've done more than an hour.
Yeah, probably.
We've gone over an hour?
Yeah.
Totally.
Like you guys tapped out already?
No. That's the thing, though. We have to keep it more interesting. We want you to come back for another podcast.
Oh, you want to do like a second one? Okay,
totally.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool,
we should
cool.
do that.
Absolutely.
And then, we can change like the vibe too. We can change like, if you have a place in mind, we can shoot the episode there. Outside on our couch, you want to relax, we can do something.
Maybe
have some music in the back.
That's what I'm saying. We should try something.
We should have a place that has a bit more wind. I'm sweating. I'm sweating bullets.
Yeah,
I'm sweating bullets, ultimately. Okay. Cool. I did want to spend some time just talking about what we're doing at Laroye as well. And Joyful, our product, sure. Just to talk about that. And then maybe after that we can round up. I feel like I'll be doing disservice to Laroye if I don't speak about like
go for it. Yeah.
Cool. So first, so the company is Laroye AI, and as an AI company, our dedication is to build AI solutions that foster mental and social well-being. So we see AI, and I think, many people speak to me, and I've been privileged to speak to people about AI, and people see it as this is going to be like a productivity hack. This is going to be an unlock for profit. And it's understandable. This is the only way you can speak about these things in a business setting that would really encourage people to pay attention. Like, it's going to help us make more money, it's going to help us get more market share, and we're going to listen to it. But just given the scope of how it's going to impact society, I feel like that's an incomplete way to look at it. So a better way would be, how are we grounding AI in human values? How are we grounding AI in human values? How are we making AI systems representations or extrapolations of human values? There's this thing Carl Jung always says. He says, people don't have ideas. Ideas have people. Ideas control and run the things that happen in the world. So if we are building AI systems and the main idea driving those systems is profit, that is problematic. At Laroye AI, the 3 values which we build our systems to be aligned with is love, understanding, and agency. Understanding, love before understanding, because if you predicate understanding on love, some people would make the process of understanding so difficult you will never arrive at love, right? So love first. And what love first simply means is these systems are designed to put the user before themselves. This is the concept of love. You prefer your neighbor to yourself. You think about your neighbor before yourself, right? Or as much as you think about yourself, think about your neighbor as well, right? Understanding in the sense that AI systems are going to operate in spaces where viewpoints are different, personalities are different, backgrounds are different, creeds are different. Let's imagine a super intelligent AI system. It will not be difficult for that AI system to talk to another AI system. Those 2 systems are vectors, they are numbers, matrices, they understand each other, right? But like human beings have different viewpoints, so AI systems need to be able to understand how to reconcile things together. And then the third thing is agency. In a world where AI systems can do many things, everything, almost anything we tell it to do, where is the space of human agency? Where is the space of people actually wanted to do this, and it wasn't something that they were convinced into doing by some puppet master stream in the background, right? Yeah. So to that end, we began to build Joyful, Joyful, and the goal of Joyful is to bring this sense of agency back into digital diets, into digital consumption. So the problem space is, obviously, there's been a lot of conversation around mental wellness, around, we understand these numbers, it's scary, especially for young adults. People under the age of 27, Gen Zs, 57% of that demographic is taking some sort of medication for their mental wellness, 40% of us are in therapy. Those numbers are scary. They are point blank scary. And then we looked into the status quo, like, how are people addressing this question? And then it does happen that everyone is talking about mental wellness. And when all that is done, so you see like calm headspace, they will give you like, oh, here is some really interesting content to help your mental wellness, right? Well, we know social media is responsible to some extent, but that's not our business. Take this meditation course, hey, nice, give me your $10, goodbye. On the other hand, we also have like apps that are into productivity. So like, oh, block your apps for 4 hours, blah blah blah. But then you're speaking to a demographic that has a lot of issues just even with discipline and decision making because our attention spans have been shot to hell.
Yeah, it's not like a one pill fits all.
You see what I mean? Yeah. So ultimately, whatever solution is going to be done to address these mental wellness problems needs to address information intake, right? It needs to address the media itself. It needs to give people agency over what goes into their minds. Because a lot of social media consumption is happening passively. In as much as YouTube tries to ask you what you like or whatever it is, ultimately they are presenting you with a feed, not for whatever thing you want to be or become, but to keep you on the app as long as possible.
Yeah.
So then we began to reimagine this entire scenario. Social media is not going away. In fact, you feel like they're going to continually, like just looking at the diagram of how the world is progressing, there'll be more different digital platforms that overlay this physical one that we're existing. Like people are going to ultimately begin to have like, digital versions of themselves and we exist in these different spaces. It's just like Ready Player One, like you would have a regular life on it. Like we are not far away from that. In fact, we have that already. We just don't physically, we just don't see it that way because we communicate in these spaces via texting and images. Like you see,
and it's not far from the
but it's not far. Like, so I mean, so we need to be able to address that. And so it's like, how about if we can give people agency over, like, you know what? Tell us your mental wellness objectives. Tell us the kind of person you'd like to be. Okay? Tell us the things you'd like to improve about yourself. So you can say like, well, I want to get into cycling, it's summer, I want to do more traveling, I want to see my friends more. I like this kind of content creator. This particular kind of content makes me really happy when I'm feeling down. Whatever it is, you can set those intentions, right? So our AI agents look at those intentions, right? Breaks it down into, topics that we can go through. And then go to the social media platforms that you use, whichever ones it is. And just like how you would send someone to the shops and be like, well, I need to make a cake, I need eggs and this, and the person picks those things and brings them back for you. This AI system retrieves content based on those intentions that you set, brings it back to you, and schedules it for you, like gives you a consumption schedule as well. So this brings two things into a social media conversation. The first thing it brings is intentionality. It's no longer passive consumption with no goal. It's now consumption targeted towards the goals that you set. This doesn't exist currently. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is scheduling times to use social media prevents you from overindulging, right? So to some extent, it's easier for you to measure, it's easier for you to understand just how you're allocating that time, right, when there's a plan for it. Right, so these are the two things that we predominantly are bringing into the conversation around mental wellness and social media, and we call it digital dieting. So basically, giving everyone the ability to have their own digital diet, but even more powerfully, having your own personal social media algorithm is the unlock for mental wellness in a digital age. Now, we have been talking about this at Laroye and Joyful since January 2024. And I remember when I went to Saskatoon, last time I was at Saskatoon, I remember someone showed me a video. And Jack Dorsey, you know Jack Dorsey, he was saying something about how there's a lot of buzz in the social media space around, oh, let's make the algorithms public, let's make it open source, whatever. And it's like, no, that's not the conversation. The real conversation is, how do we create a marketplace for agency? How do we create a marketplace where people can have their own algorithms, where they can set their own intentions, they can set their own preferences, and they can even plug and play these things in the different social media platforms, or give it to a third-party application that becomes deceived through which they just swerve through social media.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is what we were saying at Laroye AI for the last 6 months, right? Like, this is exactly what we've been talking about, like creating a marketplace around people being able to have their own custom algorithms. And apart from even the benefits to mental wellness, the benefits to productivity, the benefits to people being able to be who they want to be outside the pressure of some alternative business motive to make you want to just be online so you can buy stuff you don't need, to live lives you don't care about. Like, it just takes all of that out of the way, right? So this is the future we are building for in Laroye AI. This is what we're doing with Joyful. Our app will be available for students to use. Obviously, I'm here of our alumni, so we're going to make it available on U of R campus or U of S, whichever one is easier for us to work with, kicking off in the fall. And there's going to be a lot more conversations around just like the idea of digital dieting itself, and making people realize that like in the future is having your own AI systems that understands what you like, what you're trying to achieve, and is actively sieving through that digital space to make sure that the things that come in are the things that like who you want to be. It's not just everyone throwing stuff in your face, that kind of stuff. So like I had to say that about how we're building.
And is there like a social media page or anything people can follow up?
Yeah, absolutely. You can include our website, Laroye AI, say everything about Joyful. We are doing updates to the website, but I'm guessing by the time this podcast is out, maybe like how long does it take? A week?
Well, that's the tricky part because the thing is like we have a few podcasts in the pipeline, so it will take a few weeks. So
it's fine. Anything above a week is gonna match. It's gonna match.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, that's
absolutely. So people can go check out on what we're doing on the website. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram. Also gonna have other platforms online as well. But yeah, that's exactly how we are looking at the future of AI and how AI does help people aligns with their hopes and aspirations. That's.
And before we lean into like the end of the podcast, I'm gonna ask you the same question that Hannah asked you. So David, what's your ideal future for your startup?
There are a couple of things we want to get done. So obviously, in the short term, it would be just getting Joyful out, getting people to use it, getting that feedback, so we can really hone in, and finesse that digital dieting solution itself. One of the things we have in mind as well, as we've been talking to customers, is the fact that millennials want a similar solution for the Gen Alpha kids, and what this would cause is, a family digital diet. So it would be parents would also be able to have digital diet plans that incorporates what they want their kids to learn or be exposed to on the internet, and they can add in as many different things and consume it also as well as a family, right? So there's also like positioning this product as something for families, like young families, millennial parents and their Gen Alpha kids, and they can chaperone them and create this culture as well. So all of that is like 2 to 3 years. That's what we're working on at Waldo AI, right? Now, moving beyond that, there is the fact that this is also, so the algorithm space is going to shift social media, just like how we are seeing the shift in search, right? Because traditional search before LLMs or AI was, you go on Google, you type something, Google ranks pages and presents them to you. You click on the things that you see first, and the things you didn't see first probably won't get a click, right? But now you have LLMs that you can just ask, like, where can I get a bottle of water? And then that agent will go to the internet, search a bunch of stuff and bring it back to you, right? So this is what is happening. This is what Joyful is going to do to social media. It's going to be a case where it's like, these platforms are really huge enough to the point where they're like their own individual internets.
Yeah.
Like you can, and this is why I think like, regardless of how much personal content you want to create or whatever it is, you can't outcompete the amount of knowledge that already exists, like on Instagram or on Twitter. Like you can't be like, those spaces are like their own walls already.
Yeah.
And it's just even going to get bigger.
So people say the Twitter sphere.
Exactly. Like that's why I say things like in the digital verses, like it's Facebook was thinking they were going to create like a metaverse and it was going to be like the first digital space. Or like Facebook itself was already its own digital space, right? So social media platforms already are that robust and large enough, right? And it's going to become crazy for people to not have AI agents that is helping them go into those spaces to search and retrieve stuff based on who they are, the kind of things that they like, right, or whatever it is. So building out for that market, for example, so I was listening to Waldo AI, and it was speaking about a digital market space that exists just in Nigeria alone, and it's worth like $100 billion. euros. That's one country. Now, think of what that could look like for the entire continent. Think of how large that markets could even be for North America. So these are market spaces worth billions, potentially trillions of dollars, and it's like the world barely even knows about it, right? So this is exactly why I see Laroye as like a pirate ship, because it's like these are spaces that are uncharted. Perhaps we might be the first to reach into some of these markets and like just here's our flag, like applying in. And like that's the goal. Like as these digital market spaces for content and algorithms continue to grow, like just sailing into these spaces, understanding those markets, introducing Joyful to these people, like, yeah, this is it, man. Like this is how you navigate the new world. Like that's what it is. So yeah, that's what I see for Joyful. Laroye AI itself, I guess we're just gonna pursue whatever interests us, as long as it falls within the purview of love, understanding, and agency.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So we'll move to our rapid fire round.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask you 2 questions. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and just answer in 1 word or 1 sentence.
Okay, so what's your favorite anime and favorite anime quote?
Alright, so my favorite anime / manga, the great saga One Piece by Ichiro Oda. And my favorite quote, so there's this scene, and I think I've dropped a couple different scenes already, but I think the one I really like is, there is this scene where Zoro and Luffy were in a bar, and some pirates that think they are tough, right, they start up some shit, they start beating up on Zoro and Luffy, and Nami, another crew member, is just there wondering, like, why are they not fighting back? Like, I know Luffy, you can beat this guy like one punch, like, Zoro, you can probably just headbutt this guy and he's dead. Like, why are you getting this guy just beat up on you and not saying anything? So Nami drags them out of the bar, and then as they're walking off, they meet another guy called Blackbeard. Now, Blackbeard is going to be the main villain of the series, but at this point in the story, we don't know that yet. It's just this random guy sitting in the middle of the street, just eating cherry pies. And as Nami is dragging Zoro and Luffy away, Zoro and Luffy recognize that this guy in the street is not a regular dude. Like, this is an actual strong guy. And so they stop and they look at Blackbeard, and Blackbeard sees them like with all the rubbish on their body, and is like, I get it, right? I get why you guys didn't fight back. Those guys didn't have dreams. Like, it doesn't make sense to fight a guy that has lost their dream. Like, there's no point. Like, what is beating you gonna do to? And Blackbeard says what I think is one of the greatest scenes in the series, and it's like, a man's dream never dies. And it's like, if you really have a dream and that's what you're chasing, it never dies, it never goes. You don't need to beat people up to prove that the dream is valid. You don't need external validation for it. Like, a man's dream never dies. So it's like, shit, man.
You know, for me, it's like, shout out to one of my buddies from Calgary. So he was trying his fucking hardest to watch me Avatar The Last Airbender.
Okay.
And I was installing it for like 5 months, 4 months.
Yeah.
Like a long time. And then I finally started watching it. And man, I love that show. And the main character that I love the most is like Uncle Iroh. Have you seen it?
Iroh is like
he's a G, bro.
He's like if anybody was closest to, like, when I spoke about Taoism earlier, like, I feel like Iroh is like one of the closest representations of Taoism, because like he's super strong, obviously.
Yes.
He's from the West. Yeah. But for a person that's strong, he's also super laid back. Like, I think there's the aspect of wisdom in knowing the things you should apply your efforts to, and the things you should just like, this would just serve.
Just calm, drinking.
Like, just calm, drinking tea, like, doesn't care, didn't care anymore. Like, when it's time to get things done, like when he was in prison and he was like, I'm doing seal and it was Josh. I'm like, no! Yeah, I understand. Alright.
What's your favorite restaurant in Java?
My favorite restaurant? So, I mean, I would say I call this restaurant because I like, there's a particular item that I like. So the meeting room is in Haberlanden.
Oh, yeah.
They have this honey garlic rice bowl that absolutely freaking slaps.
I gotta go there.
10 over 10. Meeting room, like.
Yeah, it's right next to Olive Garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On the Garden Price. If you watch this, go try it out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to, teenager David, what would that be?
Keep going, keep growing. Keep going, keep growing. Like, I'm not gonna try and gas up and be like, don't worry, it's gonna be alright. Like, I need him to think it's not gonna be alright, so he applies himself like, oh my god, this is do or die. Like, I'm not gonna spoil the story for him and tell him like, don't worry, we're gonna build like $1 billion business and you no. If I tell you that you would go to your room and watch anime and you would think like, yeah, I need to no, boy. No spoilers. Keep going, keep growing. That's it. Yeah.
Awesome.
What are you most grateful for right now?
Good health.
That's solid.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A regular person has 1,001 requests. A sick person has just one.
No, Robbie Band? He saw him in Joe Rogan's podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So good health, I never take it for granted. Like, to be able to get up, your body responds, you're able to move around. You don't realize how important your body is to your dreams and your life till your body can't go.
No body, no gains.
No body, no gains. Exactly right. So good
That's
health.
awesome.
Good health.
Well, I guess this is a perfect note to end the podcast. And just any final words, David, for our viewers? Before we part ways.
Is there anything I want to say that I have not said? Well, there's a bunch of things I want to say that I have not said, but I guess I'll just wrap this up, putting the spotlight back on you guys. Thank you for reaching out to getting me on this podcast. I'm not sure what you guys thought, like, oh, this guy is going to make it great. I don't know, like, I tend to think of myself as like just a regular dude doing this.
I think it was a perfect decision, that's all I'm going to tell you. It was a perfect decision, and we're going to make it happen one more time because there's so many things to talk about now.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate that. Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Thank you for being on another perspective, David.
Absolutely.